Hi, welcome back to Happy Apple Core Homestead. Today we are going to make a relish. This one is more on the sweet side, but it's not like super sweet, but it's definitely not a dill relish. So anyway, let's jump right in. You're gonna need some cucumbers. I have some very overgrown pickling cucumbers, and these are perfect for relish. I have some onions from the garden, some garlic that I harvested a month ago or so, celery seed, ground allspice, and peppercorns, black peppercorns. This is canning salt, apple cider vinegar, and honey. If you don't have honey or you're not really into the flavor of honey, you can use sugar too. It will be the same measurements as I'll be using for the honey. This particular recipe calls for 2 pounds of cucumber, but I have more than that here, and so I suggest if you have a little kitchen scale that you get that out as well, because once we chop and seed these, we will be weighing them to make sure that we know how much of the cooking liquid to make. So that's kind of the trick, is you'll chop your onions and your garlic, and you'll peel and de-seed your cucumbers, and then we'll weigh all of that, and then from that number we'll know how much of the rest of the ingredients to use. So I am going to run over to the sink, get everything all washed up, and then we'll go on to the next step. See you in a minute. The cucumbers and the onions are all clean and washed. We're gonna hold off on the garlic for now and just kind of focus on these. You can, after you peel them and take the seeds out, you can put them through a food processor if you want to, but I'm just gonna chop them by hand. I've got a bucket down here next to me where all of this will go, and then the chickens will have a really lovely snack later. Now technically you don't have to peel your cucumbers when you make a relish, but for this particular recipe, I do. I mean, I like to. Like, I don't have to, and you don't have to either. To make this recipe, you can, if you want to just leave the peels on and just take the seeds out though, especially if you're using these big giant overgrown cucumbers. And then if you want, you can run it through a food processor after that. So I just have them and then quarter them. It just makes cutting the seeds out super fast. All right, once you have your cucumber peeled and de-seeded, then you're just going to chop it up however you like. You can do it by hand or stick it in a chopper or food processor, whatever you want to do. I'm, at least for now, to start with, I'm gonna do it by hand, and we'll see how long that takes and how tired I get of doing it before maybe I move on to something a little bit more mechanical. But we're gonna start here anyway. And the onions are at the bottom of my bowl, and you know what chopping onions is, like there's nothing special to it. So I'm gonna get all of these cucumbers and the onions chopped and put into this bowl, and then we will go on to the next step. Be right back. Everything's all chopped. I'm a little teary still from the onions, but I'm okay. So I think what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna just transfer the cucumbers and the onions over here. I have my little scale, and I just wanna see how much they weigh. And I'll make a note of that for later when we make our brine. Okay. So it's almost 6 pounds. All right, now that we know we're doing a triple batch of a recipe, we'll go on to the next step, which is to put 1.5 cups of salt in here, stirred up real good, and then we're just gonna set it aside for 2 hours and do something else. And I recommend that during your 2 hours, You make sure that your jars and your rings and your lids are all washed and ready, that your canner's ready to go. For me, I've already done those things, so while this sits for 2 hours, I'm gonna bebop out to my garden and get a little bit of work done there. And yeah, okay, cup and a half of salt. So canning salt, you don't want to use your iodized salt. It can make your brine like cloudy. Other than that, I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but it's just generally recommended that you use canning salt or kosher salt if you can. Cup and a half of salt, here we go. There's a chunk in there, but salt everywhere. How am I even allowed in a kitchen, you guys? Look, it's like falling out the backside and everything. I broke the box with my aggression. Alright, I think that's pretty much empty. We'll open the other one. This is the last half cup that needs to go in. We'll give it a good stir. And it's completely up to you if you want to like put this in the fridge or just leave it on your counter. I guess maybe just depends on how hot your house is right now. Now that it's mixed, I'm gonna put mine in the fridge because I'm not gonna be here watching it, and I don't want, like, if I accidentally let a little fly in or something, I just don't want any like extra fun little critters to end up in here, because obviously this is all nice and clean. We are gonna rinse it later, but still, like, who wants, no to the bugs. I will see you guys in 2 hours. While we're waiting for the 2 hours to wrap up, we're gonna get started. It's only got a couple more minutes left. We're gonna go ahead and get started on the cooking liquid because it's gotta come up to a boil before we can put the vegetables in anyways. So let's get started. Again, I'm doing a triple batch of the cooking liquid, so we're going to use 9 cups of apple cider vinegar. And now we need 3 cups of water. Now we need 4 to 4.5 cups of honey, and if you want a little bit of a less sweet, more tangy, I would go for 4 cups instead of 4.5. I probably already mentioned this, but this is honey from my beehives here on the property. And the final 2.5 cups. And I know I mentioned this already once before, but just as a reminder, you can use regular table sugar instead of honey if you prefer, or if you don't have honey. I just prefer to do my canning with honey. All right, I already washed and minced my garlic. This is 6 pretty large garlic cloves that I grew this year. I'm gonna add those in. And the allspice. For the triple batch, we need 6 teaspoons. I might have to open another jar. So thankfully, I noticed this as I was pouring vast amounts in here that I'm holding a tablespoon in my hand, and we needed 6 teaspoons. So there's 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon. So there we go. Done and done. Now, that said, I'm gonna go get a regular teaspoon so I don't make any more mistakes. Okay, now I have a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon. We're gonna put in 3 of the celery seed. I know I could have just kept the tablespoon, but just trust me here. This makes things easier in my head. All right, celery seed. 3 teaspoons going in, and we're gonna do 3 of the black peppercorns. Okay, now let's head on over to the stove. All right, we're gonna turn this up to medium. Give it a good stir. And we're gonna let this come up to a boil. While this is heating up, we're gonna grab the cucumbers and onions out of the refrigerator. You know, right now they're still covered in salt, and we're gonna give them a really good rinse. And we're just gonna set them off to the side until this comes to a boil, and then we'll go to our next step. So I actually wanted to show you how much liquid there is in here. So we didn't put any water in here, just salt. And you can see how much liquid the vegetables have released. Now, some people just drain it off and they don't rinse it, but that is gonna make for a really, really, really salty relish, and I don't dig that. So I'm gonna be doing a full rinse, and I'll put it into this bowl here, and I will meet you back at the stove after the rinse is done and the cooking liquid has come up to a boil. Okay, as you can see, the cooking liquid is boiling, and it is time to put in the cucumbers and onions. And, well, that's what they look like. We're just gonna pop them right in. And all we need to do now is bring this back up to a boil and boil for 5 minutes. And then we will move on to the next step. The relish is ready to go. It's boiled for its 5 minutes, and I just want to give you kind of an idea of what's going on here. Jars and rings and lids are clean. We have a bubble popper up there attached to the microwave. There is a funnel there, and here we have a wet paper towel to clean the rims, and further back here there's a canner that has water in it. We are going to be water bathing, I don't know, whatever. We're going to do water bath style canning. I know it is a pressure canner, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to be pressure canning them. I'm just using it because it's a big giant pot. So let's get some jars filled. Okay, I'm going to show you the basics. Take your clean jar, grab your funnel. I have a ladle in here, and you don't have to, you can strain some of the liquid out if you want to. You do want the cooking liquid in the jar, but it doesn't have to be super juicy or anything. And you're going to want to fill it up. That might be a little too much. So you want 1/4 inch headspace. And actually that looks pretty good. You take your bubble popper and run it along the outside edge and kind of press inward to get those bubbles out. Then you'll take your wet cloth and wipe the rim. The purpose of that is to have a nice clean seal for your lid pop your lid on, grab a ring, and then put that on. And it's super hot, so you might need your mitts. And just finger tight, okay? And then you're going to put it into your canner. So you can either do all of your jars, like mine will fit 12. I'm gonna do them all at once and put them in the canner. But right here, that's where they're gonna go. And I'm going to go ahead and fill all the rest of these jars until I run out of material, and we will go back to the next stage. The jars are ready. We're going to go ahead and turn this canner up. It already has hot water in it. And of course, there is hot cooking liquid in these half-pint jars. We're just going to go ahead and pop them into the canner. It's got quite a bit of water, as you can probably see, but we will need 1 to 2 inches of water above the top of the jars. And you can see in there, I'm just gonna go ahead and crank this heat up to high. Like I said, it's already hot in there. You wouldn't necessarily want to crank that up too fast if it was a cold canner. So nice and easy. I'm just going to put a little bit of water in the top, hot water of course. Okay, so the goal is to have 1 to 2 inches of water above the top of the jars, and I think that's pretty good. So we're going to pop a lid on this, and we're going to wait until it gets to a full rolling boil. Alright, this sounds like it's at a full rolling boil. Let's just take this lid off and take a peek. Alright, you can see for yourself that is a full rolling boil. Just going to pop this lid back on. We're going to set a timer for 15 minutes. See you then. The 15-minute timer has gone off, and now I'm going to take the lid off, set it aside, and just let this rest for 5 minutes, and then we'll take the jars out. Always make sure to open your canner lid away from your face. The timer has gone off, so it's been 5 minutes, and we're just going to go ahead and take these jars out of the canner. And you'll want to set them on something soft. I have these beautiful mats here that my sister-in-law made for me, and I love them. We use them as placemats for meals, which I think is what they were made for. But I also use them for canning because they are very plush and nice. Thank you. Thank you, sister. I know it's tempting to tip the jar when you see water on the top, but don't. It will evaporate very quickly. So please try not to tip your jars. I know you can hear them popping. That is the sound of the jar sealing, which is always a beautiful sound to hear. And you guys, that's it for today. This is not the end of the video though. I'm going to show you what to do on the next step in 12 to 24 hours. So you're gonna wanna let these just rest. It's okay if they look a little separated. You guys, not a big deal. I'm gonna see you back here tomorrow. It will be at least 12 hours, probably not 24, but this canner's gonna get emptied, these are gonna rest, and I'm making tacos for dinner tonight. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Hi friends, it's been 24 hours and now it's time to wrap up this video. All 12 jars sealed, and you can tell by pressing on the lid if it doesn't pop back up at you. It's a pretty good indication. Next, you'll want to take the rings off and just lift the jar by the lid. If it doesn't slide off, you know you're good to go. You want to take a wet rag and wipe between the little like ring parts, and you can see there's just some residue underneath here. It's super common, not a big deal, nothing to worry about. Your food is going to be totally safe. And then you're going to want to label what you've made. If you're like me, you make tons of different types of relish every year, and this is really helpful to know what type it was, especially if I particularly like this recipe and I want to make it again next year. I use dissolvable labels because that's easy for me. They wash right off, and that's it. That's all there is to it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video and joining me on this journey. I hope you like this recipe. It's one of my favorites. I know it's a little time consuming to do all the chopping by hand, but it's kind of fun to have a little bit of a chunkier relish at times, depending on what you want to use it for. Like me, I really love to put this relish in an English pea salad. It just gives it such a beautiful flavor, and it's nice to have a little bit of consistency to the relish, so a little bit of chunkier pieces. That's it. Thank you again for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I think the next video is going to be maybe on canning plum jelly. So I think that'll be really fun for you guys. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.